Good morning. Our call to worship this morning is a poem, "The Heart of Faith" by Monica Jacobson Tennyson. What is it that calls you here? That calls you onward? That calls you inward? That leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make that change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says you've done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up in hard times? It's relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, our hearts. Let's worship together. Tom, could you come up and we will light the chalice? If you will join in by reading the words in your order of service and in the online chat. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action. Thank you, Tom. Well, welcome. I don't know whether to wear my glasses or not. It's printed up nice and big, and it's anyway. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ogden. My name is John Hines, and I'm the worship leader here today. The UU Church is a welcoming, inclusive place where diversity of thought is encouraged and sought and appreciated. It doesn't matter who you love or how you identify yourself. We come here because we want to think for ourselves and explore with others. We ask questions, value the exchange of ideas, and the depth that can come from being in a community. If you're new here today, welcome. Thanks for coming. Fill out the newcomer card in the pews and put it in the offering when the basket comes around later. And please stay for the chat with us after the service. We're going to have an activity then also. So our coffee will be over here. If you're joining us online, please fill out the newcomer card online. Our service today was created through the resources of the Unitarian Universalist publication Soul Matters. The sermon this morning was written by Reverend Karen Anderson. She's the interim minister serving the First Parish Brewster UUs in Brewster, Massachusetts. Okay, now, if you would please grab your phones, put them on silent, and if you want to use them to show what we're doing or communicate with anybody, but silently, that would be fine. The presence of each and every one of you adds to the atmosphere, and we're glad you are here. Welcome. Our opening reflection is from Brian Stevenson, the Executive Director of Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama. He's won relief for dozens of condemned prisoners, argued 5 times before the Supreme Court, and won national acclaim for his work challenging bias against the poor and people of color. He was also the presenter of the Ware Lecture at the Unitarian Universalist Annual General Assembly in 2017. That means you can probably see that lecture by looking it up on the Unitarian website. In 2020, he was interviewed by Krista Tippett, who leads the program On Being on NPR. The interviews are inspired by these questions. What does it mean to be human? How do we want to live? And who will we be to each other? In exploring justice work, Brian Stevenson offered this wisdom during the interview. We cannot make progress in creating a more just society, healthier communities, if we allow ourselves to be disconnected from the people who are the most vulnerable, from the poor, the neglected, the incarcerated, the condemned. If you're trying to make policies in the criminal justice spaces, but have never met someone who's in a jail or prison, you haven't been in jail or prison yourself, you're going to fail. I think sometimes when you're trying to do justice work, when you're trying to make a difference, when you're trying to change the world, the thing you need to do is get close enough to the people who are suffering, close enough to the people who are in pain, who've been discarded and disfavored, to get close enough to wrap your arms around them and affirm their humanity and their dignity. And that's why, whether you graduate from Harvard Law or the local college, whether you're a social worker or a teacher, you should not underestimate the power you have to affirm the humanity and dignity of the people who are around you. And when you do that, they will teach you something about what you need to learn about human dignity, but also what you can do to be an agent of change.
Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing number 121 from the Gray Hymnal, We'll Build a Land. That's 121, We'll Build a Land.
Where the captives go free, where the oil of life Our message today is titled Taking One's Moral Inventory by the Reverend Karen Anderson. When I was a young woman, I had a few men in my life I was smitten by. And I mean smitten as in I had a little place in my heart that made up the qualities of my ideal man. They were in this order: my father, Mick Jagger, my cousin Trond, and Henry David Thoreau. All of them good guys. Well, I don't really know about Jagger, but men more or less that I admired for some character strength they all had. Concerning Henry David Thoreau, it was certainly not because of the way he looked. In fact, his contemporary, Nathaniel Hawthorne, described him as this: he is ugly as sin, long-nosed, queer-mouthed, with uncouth and somewhat rustic manners, but his ugliness is of an honest and agreeable fashion, and becomes him much better than beauty. So yes, I was smitten with a man who wouldn't have made any girl's head turn over being debonair or charming or handsome on the other side of the room. No, that's not why I liked him. I liked him because he was a person who lived his life with great intention. Thoreau was a New England writer in the 1800s. He was a recluse of sorts, an amateur botanist who became famous in later years through the Transcendentalist movement, but also for living in a little shack on Walden Pond that was about 10 foot by 10 foot outside Concord, Massachusetts, where he wrote and was present to his life and the natural world. What people don't know, by the way, is that he quite often in a week would trudge through the woods to his mother's house for dinner. Now, there's some great stories to tell about Thoreau, but this one has always captured my imagination. Seems Henry needed to pick up his shoes at the cobbler's shop, so he walks into Concord, Massachusetts, and on his way in, he runs into Sam Staples. Now, Sam Staples is a constable of the town, and Sam is responsible for collecting the poll tax, which was assessed on all male adults from the age of 22 to 70. Thoreau, then 29, had not paid the tax for years, and owing to certain personal convictions, wasn't about to either. Staples says to Thoreau, "Henry, if you don't pay, I'll surely have to lock you up." To which Thoreau replied, "Well, now is as good a time as any." So Thoreau was taken to the county jail, and there he stays overnight in a little cell with barred windows. He was released in the morning after his Aunt Maria heard what had happened and dropped off money on her nephew's behalf. Now, most people would have been grateful. Thoreau was not. A year or so before his overnight incarceration, Henry had spoke with candor at the town's lyceum about his opinions of the poll tax. This is what he said: refusing to pay taxes in a country that tolerates slavery and has recently launched an unjust war on Mexico is not a crime, but a moral obligation to rebel, resist, and revolutionize. Soon after all this hoopla, he wrote that wonderful essay on the duty of civil disobedience, which, as one author put it, has always been kind of a stirring ode to nonconformists who put conscience above the letter of the law and the will of the minority. Thoreau is kind of an iconoclastic Unitarian folk hero, or intellectual hero, you might say. A man who lived with great intention when it came to his principles. This man, as ugly as sin, has always been someone to emulate when it comes to character as a building block to good moral conduct. That is, until I read this book by IL Press called Beautiful Souls. Press skillfully tells the story of people who said no, broke the ranks, and heeded the voice of conscience in dark times. As I am reading this book, I am thinking it is going to point to examples of intentional living that could help guide all of us in the direction of what makes society better. And that, of course, was predicated on the belief that if we bring our best selves forward in service to the common good, we can make the larger good better. Except what I was expecting to find didn't hold true. Press tells many stories of principled, ordinary people who on first blush seem to have done amazing things just because of exemplary character. I want to start with this guy named Paul Gruneger. Gruneger was the commander of the state police in St. Gallen, a northwestern town in Switzerland that butts up against Austria. Basically, he was the head hoo-ha of border police in his area. Now, this was 1938. The Swiss government had just closed its borders, and it had instructed all of the border guards to not let anybody in without any kind of proper documentation. Nobody. No ifs or buts or maybes. But we all know from 10th grade history that there were many Jews trying to get the hell out of Dodge. November of 1938, the Nazis stormed Vienna in an organized assault known as Kristallnacht, which turned Austria's state capital into a city of terror and violence. Hundreds of Jewish shops were vandalized. Dozens of temples were burned down, and countless injuries and fatalities were recorded. The assault left little doubt that with the unification of Austria and Germany, what all of this would mean for Jews. That said, with the borders closed and strict orders to enforce it, there were indeed many people trying to find safe passage out of the country, which many of them couldn't do. But something happened at Gruneger's post, because many Jews were making it into Switzerland and finding refuge. Now, as I said, Gruneger was the commander of his unit. He was considered a conservative person. He was not a rule breaker or a restorer of any kind. He sang in his church choir and was a proud patriot and civil servant. So why did he time and time again, when Jews who sought refuge, help them actually make it past the border into Switzerland at his post? I really began to wonder if maybe just Paul had exceptional character. But what I learned is people's moral conduct often has nothing to do with their character. In fact, in other books I've read on rescuers, many of the character traits of a lot of these heroes of mercy, you might call them, we wouldn't want to uplift. Sometimes they were cheats and thieves, hijackers and blackmailers. So if it wasn't character, what was it? The answer actually lies back in Gruneger's story. He knew the rules. Nobody was really allowed to pass. Almost all of the other border captains delegated the responsibility to somebody else. They knew the decree and passed the rule onto a subordinate, and then they went about their business. Gruneger did not. Each person who was seeking asylum stood in front of him and pleaded for his help. In fact, because he let hundreds of people actually cross the border, Gruneger was fired and disgraced by his community up until the end of his life. He spent decades after the war trying to regain his good standing amongst his people. At one point, he actually wrote to the Swiss government defending his actions by saying this: "Whoever had the opportunity, as I had to repeatedly witness the heartbreaking kind of scenes of the concerns of the people, the screaming and crying of mothers and children, the threats and suicide and attempts to do it, I ultimately couldn't do it anymore. You see, it turns out that the one thing all the rescuers have in common, who exemplified exceptional moral character, who did what was right, was not a common character trait, but instead a proximity to suffering firsthand. Only common fact. I.L. Press writes, what ultimately determines moral conduct are not character traits, personal beliefs, or political attitudes, but situational factors. The social psychologist Stanley Milgram, who worked at Yale in the 1960s, did a whole bunch of work around this, and he concluded that a person's proximity to harm or suffering always directly correlated to how responsible they felt to alleviate the suffering before them. I want to go back to Thoreau. I have forever and a day lifted up his actions as the exemplar of character, of intentional, principled living that guided one's moral conduct, but I have missed something. And it is this. There is a difference, a distinction between being a good person and being a good citizen, or I believe being a good religious person. In other words, if Thoreau's hands were clean, then that was enough for him. In his own words, he says, it is not a man's duty to devote himself to the eradication of any, even to the most erroneous or enormous wrong. He may still properly have other concerns to engage him, but it is his duty, at least, to wash his hands of it, and, if he gives it no thought longer, not to give it practically his support. So here's the thing. I can't believe I'm saying this, but we need to do more than Thoreau. Yes, he was a man who held strong character traits of honesty, honor, justice, and judgment, but his view was limited, mainly because it ends with the person, with me. It ends with, as long as my hands are not tainted by wrongdoing, then I'm good. But I don't see how, as religious people, as we all are here, we can end there. Our own Unitarian Universalist principles, in particular the last one, respect for the interdependent web of life of which we are a part, strikes me as being impossible to uphold if we were all Thoreau. Our own theology of connection, with an emphasis on reminding each other that we are all inextricably not just bound to each other as human beings, but that the well-being of another is indeed related to our own well-being, couldn't be possible with Thoreau's attitude. As a Unitarian Universalist minister, I am fond of saying, we are here together to serve needs greater than our own. But perhaps a better way of saying that is to see others' needs as our own. That goes beyond Thoreau's. My hands are clean and I'm done. It also demands more than having good characters and intentional personal living, purposeful living. It means that we must continually be in close proximity to those who are the victims of the evil we want to wash our hands of. It means we engage. We don't stop here, Instead, we promise to one another, this little band of us in this room, we will stay close to the suffering of the human condition, so we are not only good people with good character, people who live with intention, but we are good religious people, good world citizens, good siblings to the human family. So while it is important to work on being a good person by developing one's character, it's equally important, I think, to live in proximity. I don't always think that's easy. 15 years ago, I brought a group of teenagers from the church I was serving at the time with me to Mexico to Matamoros and Reynosa with the New York State Labor Religious Coalition. We had gone to 2 border towns to see ostensibly what the effects of NAFTA were on countries in person. We met with workers in their homes that were often built with pallets and scrap metal and cardboard. They had no locks, no running water, no latrine, no electricity, and dirt floors. Homes that when we visited them, they raked their dirt in their 12-foot front lawn of sorts of any debris. They repeatedly commented on what an honor they felt by being able to talk to their northern citizens. At one home, I distinctly remember 3 5-gallon buckets turned upside down, where a 2x8 board was put over the top to make a makeshift bench, so we'd be comfortable while they stood and talked to us. And upon the board were 2 immaculate white handtails with poinsettia patterns. I can still see it in my head. The towels were the only immaculate piece of cloth for miles, and which they insisted we sit on. For 6 days, we listened to stories. Most of the workers made $6 a day by working for American companies that had moved their factory across the Rio Grande to reap the benefits of cheap labor. Already, many of the factories were leaving Mexico to various points in Asia for even cheaper labor. It became increasingly clear that 2 working parents couldn't make ends meet. So at one point on the trip, they said, "We are going to take you to the grocery store with the equivalent of what 2 adults working $6 a day could afford." So we went looking for the items on our list and calculating the cost, given the amount of money we had to spend. And well, after an hour, we were woefully insufficient. You could get rice and beans and oil, but you could not have enough money to buy cornmeal or tortillas. There was nothing left over for clean water or toilet paper. Most parents had to send their kids to work at 6th grade because you had to start paying for school at that age anyway. So when you can't buy toilet paper, what wins out? Certainly not in education. There were 11-year-olds bagging our groceries for tips as we went through the checkout. The point I'm trying to make is this. I've had proximity in my life numerous times. This is possibly the most striking example, but it doesn't have to be a foreign visit to witness and experience suffering. But this experience was years ago now, and in that time there have been new labor laws and immigration rights and for farm workers that I've wanted to stay on top of. But I have found the farther my proximity gets in time, the farther I get from real relational closeness to those suffering from the injustice. I start forgetting. Not entirely, but I start forgetting what the firsthand experience feels like in my gut. If you were there, you would have felt like I do. That it was sheer luck. Luck that the squalor and abject poverty and diminishing future wasn't the cards that were dealt to me. That's it. It's all freaking luck. And it is in proximity that your gut kicks in and you see the person standing in front of you as their needs being your needs. That was years ago now, and I am in need of, well, that kind of gut-moving, personal, relational, close-up experience more often. I would submit we probably all could use a little bit more of this. But here's the thing. Committed action in church or personally usually looks most like Thoreau. Thoreau did all this right thinking and thoughtful writing and provided people with good arguments, said the right things, held the right positions. But besides not paying his taxes, he didn't really do anything. Because real change, both in the external world and internally, perhaps where it's most important, internally, needs more than that formula. Yes, it takes thinking carefully about it, but it's more. It actually takes getting close, allowing the pain of others to alter you, to be in relationship with people to activate your empathy, and then committed action arises. So, my friends, our work is to try to ask the right questions so we can become the change you want to see in the world collectively. There are many ways there are many ways to go about doing this, but I know for certain I'm going to rely on the lessons learned about proximity. That right positioning is more important than right thinking. Cultivating close relationships is more important than cultivating careful thought. That the formula we have always thought works, get informed, get passionate, get going, is flawed. It has unintentional consequences to it because you only get halfway there. It's time we resisted this way of thinking and changed our perspective and approach. It's not just semantics to change the aspect of get passionate to get close. Getting close is what flips this on its head. Get informed, get close, and get going is akin to walking up to Paul Gruneger's grave and telling him he did good. Though he wasn't recognized at the time for his good deeds, nor decades after, there was a little band of feisty Unitarian Universalists who know he was onto something. When you look suffering in the eye, it is Gruneger's life. We want to hold on to it. It is Gruneger's life we want to hold on to as our moral example of the good religious life. And as a little band of fierce UUs that today lay our hearts and our metaphorical flowers in front of his grave and say thank you for that invaluable lesson. Get informed, my friends, but before you get going, get close. May proximity save us all. May it be so. Amen. All right. So we're going to take a minute to pause, to be present, and to think for ourselves how we might be able to get closer in our lives.
Let us continue this collective prayer by coming forward to engage in our weekly ritual that helps us collectively hold the challenges and joys of being human. As you light a candle, let it hold your hopes, memories, and gratitudes for this beautiful, complicated world and for our lives. And as you drop a stone into our sacred gathered waters, may it be an opportunity to imagine those burdens and the quests for forgiveness held in a community that will let the stone land with care and intention. Please come forward. continue by having an offering. We are so grateful to be in a community where we can share our resources to live out our vision in the world. Our offering each Sunday is the testament to the value of this community and to our lived values. Now, please join in calling for the offering. Could I have somebody come up? Susan? Please rise and body your spirit and turn towards the center aisle and sing the offering words that are in your order of service.
I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Thank you for giving. This offering helps the church, helps us in our effort to improve the world in big ways and small. And now I have a few invitations to some opportunities. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Mike and Bonnie King from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have invited our congregation to check out the Genealogy Research Center that their church makes available to the public free of charge here in Ogden. They'd give us a free tour of their facilities and show us how to use the free resources. We're scheduled for the morning of Saturday, February 24th. But let Dylan know so that they know how many people to expect to attend. We've taken advantage of that. Some of us have gone down and it's been very interesting. Kristen will be facilitating a reflection group about living the values as articulated in the new Article 2 revisions of our principles. If you'd like to be a part of it, please email her at minister@uuco.org. The gathering will be group sessions online, meeting times determined by the participants. So no set time yet. Okay. If we don't all believe the same thing, what connects us as Unitarians? Our monthly series returns today after the service to focus on the ways we live and practice our Unitarian Universalism here at UUCO and beyond. After service, grab your coffee or tea, which will be over here instead of across the way, and head into the library just on the other side of Geneva Hall, on the other side of that little kitchen, for an interactive class with newcomers and longtime members alike. Everybody is welcome. And the last announcement, join with the Salt Lake City Unitarian Universalist Environmental Ministry in the monthly reading and video discussion group on Wednesday, February 21st at 7 p.m. via Zoom. They will be discussing the short article, "Everyone Wants to Be a Brine Shrimp." It's a positive message of persistence. Okay, you can sign up for that discussion group by emailing green@slcuu.org. Salt Lake City Unitarian Universalist.org. Okay. And now our closing hymn.
In the great hymnal, number 299. So please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing from the great hymnal, 299.
Make channels for the streams of love where they may broadly run, and love has overflowing streams to fill them everyone. But if at any time we see such channels to provide, the very funds of love for us will soon be parched and dry. For we must share with dreamless deepness with others above. We cease to give, we cease to have, such is the law of love.
As the service comes to an end, join me in saying the chalice extinguishing words in your order of service. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, nor the light of truth, nor the energy of action. Thank you for being here. See ya.